Hey guys, it's Spencer rolling again. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a non-member NWAC school to your team's roster, as well as we're going to go over how to go back and edit an already completed box score in the season. So to start with, once you log into Dakstats, you should be syncing your web sync profile right here, just to make sure that the server is aware that we're completing stuff. So you just simply make sure your season profile is correct along with your password, and then you'll hit sync, and we'll go through the sync tools outlined in the last video. Once we've done that, we're going to come up to the teams bar here where it says team. You'll have a drop down with a populated list of teams. I'm going to go to this season for right now just to make sure nothing else looks funny. So as you'll see, I have no team selected in there. You'll have your team along with hopefully all your previous opponents and future opponents so far. So I'm going to come over to configure, located right next to the team bar there. And then we'll come into the season, and then I want to add a new team. So I'm going to come down and I'm going to select the add new button down in the bottom left. Normally, if this was an NWAC school, I would come over and select the via list button, but since it's not, I'm just going to come to the add new button down here. So then I'm going to select it. Up pops a new team, and I want to name this new team. So in the top right box that's now went from gray to white, I'm going to change the name, and let's just say Linfield JV. Then down here I'm going to change their print name just to make sure we're in sync here. JV. Abbreviation, you don't have to, it's not a big deal because their stats aren't going to populate on the website, but I'll just say LJV for the sake of filling it in. Make sure the female box is located down here because we don't want it thinking it's a male team. So always make sure this box is checked right here. Now, if you'll notice, if we come over, the team code sitting as empty in the bottom left here. I want to make sure that populates with the 9999 non-NWAC designation code. So in order to do that, I'm going to come to the box that says lookup ID and code. Set the team code, so I'm going to click it. Save information to updated team, yes. So before we continue on, you'll notice that save now to Linfield JV. Okay, if it doesn't, go back and make sure that it does, otherwise it won't recognize the team when you go to start the game. So instead of finding from the league like we would normally do with the NWAC, I'm going to select this giant bar right in the middle that says select as non-member school code. There's that code 9999. That's the one we want. So I'm going to hit it, and boom, up pops the 999 code right down here. The college ID, that's just what they have set for this team code. That doesn't really matter. It'll always be 1718, so don't worry about that. Just make sure the 5 nines are in that box. And then once I put in the correct information here and I like what I see, I'm going to save it. And then once I save, I'm going to close out of it. So now I should have Linfield JV in here. And for the sake of our season, I'm going to add another team in here. Don't worry about this. You should already have your team in this list. So we're going to pretend that you guys are Bellevue today. So we're going to say Bellevue, make sure they have their code. So now we should have two teams in here, Bellevue and Linfield JV. Okay, once you select your visiting team Linfield JV, we can now add a new contest. Okay, up pops our configuration screen. Make sure your season's correct up here. If you're hosting this team at home, you should be live statting it. So we want to select Linfield as the visitor. We don't care about their record right now. We'll just say 0-0 because they won't get updated to the server anyways. And then I'm Bellevue, the home team. So then, didn't like my record there. So we'll say Bellevue, I'm going to take a wild stab, is 12-5 right now. Game type non-conference, make sure your start time's correct. We'll say it starts at 6 p.m. Obviously they're not starting at 6 a.m. And so what I'm just doing is I'm clicking on these three and manually typing in with the keys what I want to select there. You can use After your selection, you can use the up and down arrows. That works too. That one's personal preference. Same thing with the end time. I usually just put in 2 hours after the match started. That way I'm usually safe, even in a 5-set match. And then play-by-play mode, simple play-by-play mode. You'll have the other 3 modes here, but you'll select play-by-play mode if you're live statting this game, which you would be at home. If you're on the road and you're going to put stats in for a game that was played either earlier today or later in the day, we're going to select box score game by game. So chances are if you're on the road, you'll see this a lot. So we want to do box score game by game. And I'm just going to select this now because I think that's where most schools will need this information the most. So then I make sure I can fill in whatever I need to down here. I'm not worried about arena, attendance, anything like that. Make sure it's out of 5 if you're not playing a tournament game. If it's set to 3 or less, it's not going to populate in the home screen. You'll have problems. So make sure that's 5 right there. Okay, webcast should be selected if you're synced and connected to the internet, but that was covered in a previous video if you want to go back and take a look. So I'm going to make sure to save the match. Good, game has been saved. Then I'm going to select done in the bottom right. And up pops this game. And you'll notice it doesn't say PBP, it says box per. So that's box per game, and it's not started. So I'm going to select it, open it up. That's fine. That just means I'm not online. And so now, hopefully, when you have your rosters populated, you'll have all these statistics for every single player up there. And what you'll be able to do is you'll be able to select game by game. Notice the blue box changes as I change the select game. This box hops over either from match 1 or if I select match 5. It hops all the way through. So first what I want to do is I want to get on the first game and I want to fill in my score. So I'm going to click that first box for Linfield. Notice how it has that red outline around it now. It means I'm selected on their score. And I'm going to come over to the big plus minus that's in the right. And I'm going to plus them up to how many points they had. We'll say they had 17. Then once I like their score, I'm going to come down and select Bellevue. Make sure their box is highlighted in red. And we'll say Bellevue had a really good match and they beat Linfield 25-17. So once I like that, now that I'm still in game 1, I'm going to come down to my statistics. And you're going to fill in your stats for each player. So we'll say whoever's here for the sake of continuity, select the correct player, same deal up here, highlight your box that says K in it, make sure it has that red outline around it, and then you're just going to use the plus minuses to add stats back and forth. And so once you fill in each stat for each player in that first game, you can then move on to the second set. Notice the blue box is now changed over. Bellevue has won game 1. Now we're on game 2, so we'll fill in again, same as we did in set 1, to whatever the score was. So obviously I know that's not a final score, but you get the idea working with it. And then same thing, I'm going to come back down to each of the stats columns down here for each team. Really, if you're facing a non-NWAC school, all you really have to do is fill out their team stats. It's not going to update to the website anyways. So you can spend most of your time, say, on Bellevue stats or whoever school you may be. And so just like set 1, I'm going to highlight each item I want to fill in. So we'll say assist errors. I believe that stat's called. And then I'm going to add plus or I'm going to add minus if I go too much. Once I get what I like, I'm going to do the same thing for all the other stats and for all the other players. In the team stats, if you notice under team totals, this number will increase as you add each player's stats in. So if I'm adding a player's stats, notice the team totals down here is increasing to 4 as I plug these stats in. That's a good thing. So once I finish all 3 to 5 of my games and I like what I see, I'm going to come up to game control and I'm going to select match finish. It's very important you don't select this until you're absolutely certain you like what you see in either the play-by-play or the box score mode. So match finished. Do you want to update the win-loss? Yes, I do. We'll say Linfield lost. It won't matter because they're not getting updated. Bellevue's now 13-5. You can change the end time if you want. Just make sure that these two times are different. This one's farther back than the other. And then you're going to save match again. So game changes have been saved. Okay, that's good. It lets the website know the game's over and to give it that final connotation when you look at it. So then I'm going to select done. And then from there, everything should be completed. You notice it has this checkbox now next to match finish right there. That's a good thing. Everything else is grayed out. Then I'm going to come over and I'm going to do my web sync. You'll have these two will be highlighted. Since I'm not connected to a web sync profile, they're not highlighted. So what you would do is you would select the web sync game option right here, but I'm going to select the setup one that has the same option in it. So then I'm going to make sure my select web sync season's correct. All my information looks correct. I would be Bellevue in this case. Their team code would be NWA 001, I believe. And then they're going to put in their password right here. And then I usually like to select the game I just did. So it's not going to come up in this one because it thinks it's in a different season, but that's fine. Just make sure it's your season right here and you'll have your games list populated. So select the correct game. In this case, it would be somewhere down here as Linfield JV or LJV at BCC or whatever abbreviation for Bellevue, and it'll say hopefully box complete. And then you'll just enter your password. You'll select sync single. And then once you hit that, password cannot be empty, you won't get that. This list will start populating with data, and then you'll get a pop-up screen that says your record does not match the web sync record. That's okay. It just thinks it's confused because we did tournament games that weren't statted on your computer. So just bypass through that, and then you'll get to another screen that'll ask you if you want to merge competitions. You're going to say done on that because we don't want to merge any, and then this list will continue to populate. And then once it's done, it'll give you a big thank you down here in the bottom area where my cursor is. And then once you get that thank you, then that means you uploaded it successfully. You're going to click done here. And then once you're done, you're going to close out of that match. And then before you shut off the computer, I'd like you guys to web sync one more time in this box right here. So if you're set to web sync season, I'm going to double check here. So up here you have the web sync tab. We're going to come to setup. And then to check, I'm going to go into edit profile underneath the top left here. So once I select that, your population will come up right here depending on what school you're at. Make sure down here that if you're syncing your season, you want to be in full web sync. That basically syncs everything you have on the laptop. You would come down to single game web sync if you want to fix a box, which we're going to go over in a second here. So that one is to fix a single box. This one is to sync your whole season. We want to be in this full web sync more than we're in the single game web sync. So in this one, I'm going to say save now that I'm in full web sync. If you're in there, don't worry about it. No, you'll just hit done. And I'm going to hit done again here to get out of the screen. Now that I'm in full season web sync, I'm just going to enter my password in right here, whatever it may be. It'll be dependent on your school, and then you'll hit sync. And then we'll go through the same process again as we did with the game. And just to be sure, always check the website to make sure your game uploaded correctly. If it doesn't look like it's uploaded correctly and it's not showing as final with the box, make sure to give me a call so that way we can talk it out and make sure it gets finished correctly. So then the other part I wanted to touch on is we wanted to go back and look at a competition that was finished a few days earlier that maybe we didn't like the scores. So, for example, Big Ben calls back Clackamas and says, hey, I noticed you had these stats for this player. She actually didn't play. That was another player, so can we get those changed? That's fine. So what you'll do is you'll come back into your season. You'll select Web Sync up on the top toolbar up here, and we're going to select Setup as we did a second ago. So right underneath, first choice, Web Sync Setup. This comes to my new pop-up screen here, and we're going to go back into that Edit Profile box right here, right underneath Select Web Sync. So right there with the plus sign, Calendar. So we're going to make sure now is where we're going to come down and we're going to select Single Game Web Sync. This is going to let me open up one game at a time rather than deal in the full season. So if you don't have this selected right here, you won't be able to pull open games that are over a day old. So make sure we get this selected right here. Once you do, you're going to hit Save. Would you like to check for new messages? No, that's okay. Once you have that saved there, I'm going to hit the big old Done button with the check. And then I'm going to hit Done out of this screen again. Now I'm going to be able to come in and select the game I want to edit in this list of schedule. So make sure you're on the right game with the right date, and then we're going to open it up. Could not start DTSI. That's fine because we're not on the internet. So then you'll have the box. This is the one we just did a second ago, and say in this case Bellevue had, I'm just going to give them some stats. Oh, okay, here we go. So to edit stats, we got to unselect the match finished check mark. So once you get that pop-up screen there, head up back to the game control tab right here, as you'll see, and then we're going to unselect that match finish tab. Now if you notice, we come back in here, I clicked on it. Now when I open it back up, that check's gone away. That's going to let me edit the stats in here. So now we'll say, for this case, if Bellevue had 5 assist errors, but the coach thought they should only have 4, you'll just make that edit to the player or to the team. Same thing with kills and errors. Say Sally had 30 attempts, or in this case we'll say Sally had 10 attempts and 4 kills. Oops, I did one too many. So she had 10 attempts and 4 kills. Well, Bellevue thought she should have 4 kills on 8 attempts. So you'll come down, you'll select that box right here specific to her, and then you'll make the changes accordingly. Okay, and that'll affect the team attempts too, so be wary of that. And so once you've made the necessary changes you like to see, you're going to come back up to game control. Make sure you've added all the changes to all the players and the stats look accurate. Then you're going to reselect that match finish tab again. Do you wish to update the team's win or loss duration? No, because we've already done that, and that's been submitted to the website. Because we didn't actually change the outcome of the game, we don't need to update the score. So we're going to come back, make sure that match finished is selected again after everything, and then I'm going to Web Sync Game again. You can select Web Sync Game instead of Season in this one because we're set to only Web Sync one game. So you'll select Web Sync Game, similar as we do after every match. In this case, I'm going to go Setup just to show you the screen that will come up. And then you'll enter your password, select the contest you want, whichever one it is. Make sure the password's in there. Then you'll select Sync. Make sure to skip through that update wins and losses record and the merge competition record. Excuse me. Once you're done with that, you'll get that thank you note down here, let you know you're good, and then you'll hit Done and you'll be able to close out of the match. Then make sure once you've made all your changes, web sync your profile again back here. But before you do that, I strongly recommend you come back to Setup and edit your profile again and switch back to the full web sync tab down here in the profile type, which will take you back to the season and make sure it's updating everything rather than one game at a time. So once you go back to full season sync, hit save. Would you like to check for messages? No, I would not. And then once you've saved that, you'll select done again. And then once you've done through that screen, you'll hit done again, and you should be good to go to close out your program. Okay, I hope this helped and this answered some of your questions you guys had with dealing with non-conference opponents as well as editing box scores.